All right, it's that time of year where we rank every single hero in Marvel Champions. Most importantly, it's just my opinion. That's it. It's just my opinion. It's based off of three things mainly, right? My number one thing that's most important to me is how fun the hero is. If the hero's not fun, I'm not going to enjoy them. I'm not going to really play them. And I know that's subjective. So just FYI, like my number one thing is very subjective. The second most important thing to me is how unique or interesting or different or how well they implement their unique hook, right? The thing that makes them special, the special power that they have, whatever it may be, how well it's done, how unique it is, whatever else, right? Lastly, the third most important thing to me has to do with aspects. Do they play differently in each aspect, or does it feel like I'm just playing the same exact like kind of hero cards over and over? There's nothing unique and different about them. Lastly is theme. If I really need a tiebreaker or something like that, usually we don't get down that far, but if we wanted to, theme would be my tiebreaker there. I want to stress one more time that this is just my opinion, right? So again, if you have a list that's different than mine, right, that's totally cool, totally awesome. I don't want to discourage you from getting certain heroes or whatever. It's just kind of how I feel about them. And again, if you love a hero that I hate, or vice versa, I hate a hero that you love, totally cool, totally fine. Hopefully you don't mind. We're going to do this with tier rankings, and we'll get into that in 1 second. But if you disagree with my rankings, do me a huge favor. Go over to twitch.tv/D20woodworking and let me know. Let me know why you disagree, or maybe you just want to come hang out with our amazing online community. The live stream community is amazing. It's so much fun to be a part of. So go over to that website, twitch.tv/D20woodworking, hit the follow button, turn on notifications. And yeah, I guess let's go over and start our tier rankings then. All right, so we're up to 49 heroes in this game, which is amazing. I actually really like it because, again, if there's a hero that's a dud, right, quote unquote, and it doesn't really connect with me, it doesn't matter because there's like 30 other heroes that I love. So, who cares, right? So it's kind of a really great spot that Marvel Champions is in currently. I currently have all the hero cards out here. I think this is all of them. We'll make sure in a little bit. But I'm basically, while I will be ranking in order, right, there are 5 tiers worth. And I think if the bigger picture is paying attention to the tier that it's in. So, for example, the vast majority of them are probably going to be in they are okay, right? And these are the ones that are going to move around a lot. So, sometimes I like them for different reasons than not, and I'll go into small details for each one and whatever. But the top is love them, like them a lot. They are okay, not my favorite, or actively don't like, right? So that's just rough ideas of what the tiers are. Just because they're in that tier now doesn't mean that they can't move on later or anything like that. So, all right, without further ado, let's jump into this tier list with my least favorite, and we'll work all the way up to my most favorite hero. And the least favorite should really not be surprising to anyone. If you ever watched one of my live streams or pay attention to my videos, Doctor Strange is by far my least favorite. The big argument with him is that people always say like, oh, he doesn't like him, or most people don't like him because he's too OP. I don't care that Doctor Strange is OP. I think that's completely fine. There's actually heroes that I like a lot that are OP. The problem is he's incredibly boring. I can give the Doctor Strange deck with whatever aspect cards, it does not matter, to any new player and tell them to play, right, without giving them instructions, and they will know to run through the invocation deck. That's all you have to do with them. Run through the invocation deck over and over and over. And that's just not fun gameplay, right? You can do this in protection, you can do it in leadership, it doesn't matter. It's all the same at this point for Doctor Strange. Invocation is the way to go. And that to me is the worst part of him, is that he's just the most boring hero out there. All right, next up on the list, we have a hero that was really hyped up when they were first announced. People thought it was going to be amazing because they thought the deck building options were going to be amazing with this hero. And I think the possibility for that was there. But Adam Warlock is just boring. All right. I do think the Wild Tutor deck is the best deck for him. I know people argue that there are other ways to play him, and I absolutely agree there are other ways to play him, but why bother when the Wild Tutor deck is obviously the best for him? So, not a big fan. I also don't like how long it takes the deck build for him. I think that's a big part of the problem, is that I just want to play a Marvel Champions game where I play it quickly, I get into it, and I feel like I can't do that with Warlock. It just takes too long for me. All right, next up we have another hero that I wish I would like more, and I know that supposedly she's gotten better now with certain aerial cards and whatnot, and that is Spectrum. I just don't like her form phasing shifting between the 3 cards. I always feel like I'm stuck in the wrong phase, that it's too hard to switch between phases. There's a lot of heroes that have come out more recently that change phases that I think do a lot better than Spectrum. She's just not for me. I always feel like I'm actively stuck in the wrong phase, and it just leads to a bad time overall. All right, next up, we have a hero that a lot of people love, and I really just don't like him, unfortunately, and that's War Machine. The problem with War Machine that I've always had was that War Machine felt like he was doing two different things, and they were just like fighting each other with those two things. And that was his active counter thing he had going on, right? We had to store up ammunition. Like, the idea is cool, but the cards should be a lot cheaper. Like, they're a little bit cheaper, but they're not a lot cheaper. And it's really hard to get more ammunition going for War Machine without flipping down. So that like shoves him kind of in Shield Justice build, which is a strong build for him, and it's kind of cool. But it's kind of cool like one or two times, and then like I kind of get over it. So while I don't mind the idea of War Machine, it feels boring at this point that I have to run in Shield Justice, and I just feel like I get stuck without ammo counters, and then when I have no ammo counters, I can't do anything, and that's really no fun overall. All right, next up we have our first one in the not actively don't like one. This one is barely outside of it. They're in not my favorite right now, but I could see them dropping down further. This is also the first hero that we have from the next evolution cycle, which is Deadpool. I don't like Deadpool. I don't like his design. I don't think it's fun. I don't think it's interesting. Basically, he's using life as a resource, more or less, and this is the third time in 2 cycles we've seen that. So there's nothing new and interesting there. The side of him where, okay, he doesn't really die, just puts acceleration tokens on to cause more chaos on the board is very on theme and is very on point for Deadpool. And if that's your thing, I think he will hit that well for you. But that's just not for me. I don't want to be fighting the hero, the schemes, the minions, and my own hero that's causing chaos, right? That doesn't bring enjoyment to me. I don't think that's fun. The best way to play him really is a rush strategy, and I just don't want to rush all the time. I'd rather, actually, if I'm going to do rush, play someone like a Star-Lord or play Hulk in rush. Like, I think there's more fun and nuance in there versus you're just trying to run 2 of his cards back to back. All right, our next hero is from the X-Men cycle, and I still don't like him. I still don't think he's great, but he's not like as bad as I thought he was, and that's Cyclops. I mean, he's still not great, but my biggest issue is that it just doesn't make sense. I have to put certain attachments to do like the laser blaster thing. I haven't even played him in a while, but I don't like that you have to put an attachment on that's going to immediately come off next turn to do the laser blaster. I don't think it makes sense. I think it feels weird. It feels clunky. I do like that he can use the different allies for different aspects. That is one cool thing. And now that we're getting more X-Men allies, and hopefully we get more in this cycle, I think it's going to help flesh it out a little bit more. And I think I'll get a little more into him moving forward. Like, I don't think he'll shoot straight up the list or anything like that, but I do think he'll move up a bit with more X-Men allies out there. The next hero has actually moved way down my list. They used to be a bit higher, but I'm just not a fan of this hero anymore. I like the idea of what they're trying to do. I think it's a neat idea, but the problem is it feels so pigeonholed in the aspects that you could play them, and that is Drax. I like the idea of Drax. I do. I think that he's kind of cool with taking the vengeance counters and building up attack. Like, I think that's a whole neat idea, and I'm a fan of it. The problem is I feel like outside protection, there's not a lot I want to do with him. Now, I know there are decks that make him work outside of it, but it just feels like I should be back in protection taking hits, right? That's what it just feels like. That his pre-con deck is incredibly good for him, and I think it works really well for him. But the problem is outside of that pre-con deck, there's a few cards you can interchange. But other than that, it feels like I'm shoehorning the protection, taking hits to build up those vengeance counters, and I'm just doing the same thing over and over. The next one kind of hurts because I do like this hero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I do like the idea of what she's trying to do, and I think it could be fun or a lot more fun in multiplayer. And when I play her in Justice, it makes a lot of sense in Justice, and it works really well, and it's really kind of cool what she's doing. But outside of that, I feel like I can't do anything else, and it kind of stinks. And that is Nebula. I like the idea of Nebula. I want to like Nebula more, but you need to be able to flip down constantly, and without having a confused lock kind of situation going on, or just playing a really heavy Justice where you're thwarting a ton, it feels like you're just stuck in this weird kind of, middle spot where I can't do the main things that she wants to do, which is, flip down to put out her technique cards, I think they're called, so she can get more card draw. And then when you flip up, time it right so you can do this massive damage or massive thwarting or whatever it may be. Like, I like the idea of the technique cards. It's too hard as a solo player to flip down. Multiplayer, I'll play her all the time. I think she's a lot of fun. Just for solo, I feel like I've exhausted her of what she can possibly do in solo. Now we enter the next section, which is they are okay. And there's going to be a lot of heroes in the they are okay section. But the lowest one, which kind of teeters on not my favorite and they are okay, is Hawkeye. I don't mind Hawkeye. I think he's all right. I want to like him more. It just feels like I can't do much with him. He's just a little too squishy. He can lose his bow a little too easily, right? You need the quiver to kind of start doing things. It's just there's a lot of moving pieces there. I know people have built some interesting decks, and I'll still play them, right? Don't get me wrong. I still play Hawkeye now and again, and I still think it's a fun enough time when I play him now and again. I just wish there was a little more to him, right? I wish there was just a little bit more. So I want to like Hawkeye more. I will still play him. And when I do play him, I go, okay, that was fun. That was fine, but I don't want to do it anymore. So hopefully they kind of support him moving forward somehow. I don't really know how. But Hawkeye is just, he's okay. Kind of right along with this and the same idea, which I actually think this hero is going to go below Hawkeye at some point soon, is Colossus. I like the idea of Colossus. I like what he's trying to do with the tough statuses and use them as resources. Like, I think it's a cool idea overall. The problem is, for me, is that if you go against an enemy with piercing, like, you're done for, right? Because it just knocks all your tough. You can kind of get stuck in this weird limbo where you can't really do anything if you can't flip down and get more toughs, or if you don't have a way to build them back up. So it's almost like the War Machine effect, but it's a little bit easier to get tough status cards because you can use some other cards if you need to. I just feel like I get stuck in this weird spot, and he's not great at thwarting. He's not bad, but he's not great at thwarting. So then I feel like I need to use Justice a lot to kind of get him to be okay at it. It feels clunky. It feels not fun. It kind of feels all over the place. So I want to like Colossus. Every time I play him, it just doesn't work out great for me. All right, the next hero is actually a hero I used to love, and I used to love playing them, but I feel like I've done everything with this hero. I feel like there isn't anything new or exciting with them, and that is Black Widow. I like the mechanics. I like what she's doing. I think at the time, she was very interesting and very unique, but she makes sense in her Justice build. She makes sense in her shield builds. I know there's like a defensive version that people use with her suit and whatever. I think I messed around with that for a while, and that was pretty cool too, right? And she's fine, right? There's not too many things to do with her aspect wise, I feel like, besides those two things. Aggression and leadership I never really got working for her. Her whole preparation card thing is like interesting enough and whatnot. And like, I'm having some fun, right? It's not like I'm not having fun, but comparative to a lot of other heroes, it's just a lot of other heroes I would rather play. All right, the next one is actually kind of painful to do because this is my favorite hero in the MCU. It's my favorite comic book hero. It's my favorite movie hero, my favorite everything hero. And he's just a product of old design, it feels like. And that is Spider-Man Peter Parker. I want to like Spider-Man. I really do. But the way that his thwarting works or doesn't work really hinders him. It feels like you have to play Justice again to kind of compensate for that, or you have to do an aggression minion build to get the Spider Tracers out there, which isn't the worst thing in the world, right? There's some options in there, but he feels very early design at this point, right? He feels very early where they were trying to get their heroes to do a couple things, not really be super well balanced overall, which is fine. I think early design was meant for a lot of multiplayer stuff and not thinking that much about solo. But he just feels like an older hero now, right? He doesn't feel as well balanced. He feels off. Something feels off with him, and it just stinks. Because again, I love Spider-Man the character, but as far as in this game, I think he just kind of falls flat for me. Our next one is another hero to me that we start getting in this realm where they're fine, right? There isn't like much to like dislike about them, but there's not like a lot to like love about them either. And for me, this is the epitome with Vision. I don't think Vision's a bad hero by any means. I think you're basically doing a Vivian build, which is your best bet usually, which is a fine way to play Vision. I think there is some other interesting things you can do. The problem is his whole flipping mechanic kind of feels a little dated with Shadowcat now. So it's not as exciting as it was. I think it feels a little more limiting with how, he can't really attack or thwart, I guess, on his one side, right? Like he's not bad. But he's just okay, right? And there's gonna be a lot of heroes where I just feel like they're just okay in this middle part. Whenever I look to pick out a hero that I kind of get excited about and I want to do something new or interesting with, when I look at Vision, I just think of Vivian, or I think of maybe kind of like an ally swarm build if we want to do more Android type stuff. But I wish they would support more Android type stuff. Fortunately, they haven't yet. So he's just one of those heroes that is just like, he's fine. I feel like I get kind of stuck in the same rut with him, and I don't really want to do other things with him. This next hero has fallen down quite a bit for me, unfortunately, and that is Nova. I like the idea of Nova. I like how he works with this whole wild resource generator. I think it's pretty cool. It kind of feels samey now at this point. I feel like I'm kind of doing the same exact thing with either aerial things, right, with the helmet and whatnot. There's nothing crazy exciting with him. I think he's okay. It just feels like I'm building the kind of the same aggression deck over and over. I could do justice with him, which isn't bad. I think everything that I do with him is like it's fine. He's so quick to build out, and there's so little that's needed. Is that you just kind of jump right into that quick aggression build, and then like I just win, right? It's a very quick process, which I mean he's a very strong hero. It's just it kind of gets redundant at that point. The next hero has actually moved up a little bit, which is kind of impressive because I really don't like that I can't do all of her actions when I play solo. It feels like, again, like if you're playing a video game, a part of the video game is locked out because you're not playing with friends. I don't like that. I don't like that feeling. And I know people have justified it as, oh, she'd be too powerful at this or that or whatever. It doesn't matter. Like it's not a good feeling to me when this happens. Now, is she still fun and still has some cool stuff she does? Yeah, she's fun. I don't hate her or anything like that, but I do dislike that feeling of that I can't do everything that she has to offer because I happen to be playing solo. It's just not a great feeling overall. So I'm not the biggest fan of it. But as far as Rogue and this spot, I think she's okay. When we play her on stream, it's not like the worst thing in the world, so I don't get like upset about it or anything. And there's obviously heroes I'd rather not play compared to her. But she has her moments where it's like, okay, this is kind of fun what I'm doing. But then again, it will happen where I can't play a certain card or can't do a certain action on a card because I'm playing solo, and that's just a bad feeling overall. All right, this hero slowly keeps kind of climbing the list, and it's kind of interesting because nothing's really changed for the hero. I think just my mindset of having certain heroes that I don't mind building out for, right? If you watch my live streams and you watch how I play, generally speaking, I'm not a big build out hero player. Like I don't enjoy that process. It's a little too slow for the way I play things. I like to play a little bit more of a tempo paced game, kind of in between rush and build out. But Iron Man build out, there's something fun with it. I think it's because you're immediately getting rewarded, right? With you get more cards and you can do more stuff on the table, and it feels generally good and everything's kind of priced pretty well. So I don't mind doing his build out. He's still not my favorite hero by any means, but I think he's slowly growing on me that I have certain heroes where I'm like, okay, I don't mind doing the build out for them. I don't want to do build out for every single hero. I won't enjoy it. For the vast majority, I won't enjoy it. But for him, I don't know. Like thematically, like again, theme doesn't mean a ton to me, but I think this theme in itself is at least interesting enough and like hits the right notes where it's just like, okay, this is kind of worth it and kind of cool. So again, he's slowly moving up the ranks. I don't know if he'll ever go that high or anything like that, but he is a hero that I've been enjoying a lot more recently. It's time for the darling of the internet, it seems. This is one where everyone thinks I hate this hero, and I really don't hate Psylocke. She's the epitome of okay to me. Like she's just an okay hero. I don't think she does anything super unique or interesting. She's got 2 resource generators, and they flip back and forth. And like that's cool, right? That's fine. I think there could be some interesting choices there. Like that part of it, I like. What I don't like is reading all of her event cards over and over and over to basically do a couple damage and confuse an enemy. Right? It just feels like I'm doing the same thing over and over. Even if I'm on 1 knife and 1 sword or 2 swords or 2 knives, like in the end, it just feels like I'm just doing different amounts of damage and confusing different amounts of enemies. And that's really it. And I have to read a lot to get to that point. And I know some of it does card draw too, I think. I don't know. It just feels like a lot. I'm not a big fan of it. She doesn't have that big attack power that I would want from a hero with how I play of a lot of like the way I close out a lot of games is by big attacks at the end. And she doesn't have the ability to do that, right? She doesn't have like a lot of attack at the end. So I now have been playing her a lot more aggression, which I like, but justice, protection, leadership, like all that kind of falls to the wayside because she just doesn't have that attack power I'm looking for that final push. And that's more of a me play style thing. So I know a lot of people like her and that's totally cool, but I'm not the biggest fan of the way that she plays. I think it's okay, right? I do like the 2 resource generator thing. I like that it flips and I can change my stat line and all that stuff. Like that's fine. I just don't like her events. And I'm a very event heavy type player. And I don't think her events are that interesting or that fun. All right, this is another hero that's moved up a lot recently, and they've kind of stalled out a bit, but I think it's a pretty good spot for them, and that is Quicksilver. I didn't like Quicksilver for the longest time because it just the readying up thing I think is a little too basic now. I think we have heroes that we'll talk about in a little bit that do it much better and much more interesting. I think Quicksilver in protection was the way I always played him. And he was fun in protection. He's really good in protection. I think Quicksilver in aggression is really fun when you get him swinging. That was a lot of fun to play with. So I think that's why he's moved up is I'm starting to see a little more depth there, more things I can do with him. So he's not nearly as bad as he was. Not that he was bad, but just as enjoyable, right? He's more enjoyable now for me. There's a little more depth to him for me. So I don't mind him now. I don't know how much higher he'll really go because the basic, just like use the basic power and readying up, feels like just a little too simple now, right? I want a little more depth to my heroes nowadays. I want a little more nuance, them to be a little interesting. So I don't hate on Quicksilver as much as I used to, but still just he's fine. This is another favorite of the community who I mean, I like this hero. Don't get me wrong. I like this hero for who they are. Hulk is fun. Hulk can be a lot of fun to play. He really can be, but he can be really frustrating to play too. Like really frustrating. I hope they come out with Gamma cards to support him. I really do. He's a hero I will continuously now and forever root for. I hope they do more with him. It's just like it's kind of rough playing them. Like it really is. And yes, there are things that you could do with Plan B and whatever else to make it a bit easier and do a few more things. Yes, I get it. But it's still just sometimes not great playing them. Shield Hulk is right now the best Hulk for as far as meta goes. It's just like I don't know. It feels like I want to be able to do more and you just can't, and it's just not a great feeling. But again, I like Hulk. I think he's fun. Just everything else about him just doesn't feel great. We have another hero that kind of fluctuates in the middle bottom around there, and that is Ant-Man. Ant-Man is my opinion, the worst of the three-sided hero cards. He's not a bad hero. I don't get a lot of excitement out of him. You know, you get the helmet and you just kind of run through events, and that's it. I don't think there's anything too interesting about him. I think he's very basic to play. Is he strong? Yeah, he can absolutely be strong. And I don't mind him now and again because I think it is cool to change forms and whatever. And there's a little bit of fun things you could do there, but he's just the weakest out of those series of cards for me. And he just, it's very simple, right? Get the helmet, run the helmet. Small army of ants helps out a lot, and just pop to whatever form you need if you need more thwarting or more attacking, right? And then just kind of rinse and repeat that. All right, we're starting to get the point in the tier list where like we're on the edge of they are okay and like a lot, right? Like these ones can kind of pop back and forth either way. And one of the perfect examples to this for me is Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel could be a lot of fun to play with how her card draw ability works. I think it's really neat and really cool. The problem is that I've played her so much that I'm just kind of bored with her, right? Spam energy resources, get the card draw, heal her up. Like it's very kind of straightforward. It works well in all the aspects and stuff. And I don't think it's bad or anything, but I'm just not having a ton of fun when I'm playing her anymore because it feels a bit repetitive. But what she does and how she does it, she's really, really good at with, again, using energy resources with the mass card that you build up energy channel, I think it is, that stores all the energy. The card draw is obviously absolutely insane. She's really great for controlling the board state. She's one of my favorite heroes to play when I'm like teaching someone how to play. So I do like her, but I played so much of her at this point that I don't feel like there's other builds with her, right? I'm still just kind of leaning into her cards, leaning to different energy cards, but really in the end I just care about if they're an energy resource or not. All right, this is gonna be the last one I think in this section of that they are okay, and that's Angel. I like Angel. I think Angel fits my playstyle really well, and that's kind of why I clicked with Angel. He's one of those heroes where it's just it makes sense playing him to me because you don't do a ton of build out with him. He's very event heavy, and the events like hit like a truck, right? So he could do a lot of damage, and it clicks well with me. But I haven't seen a ton of depth with more aerial cards with him. Like there is some, and that's why I do think he's okay and like a lot. Like it's in between there, but his cards are just so strong that I don't think it really matters a whole lot what else I play with him aerial card wise. Like they're just there to like lightly supplement his cards because his razor dive and whatnot is just so incredibly powerful. So I think if they come out with more aerial cards and builds around aerial stuff, I think it'd be more fun. Like leadership, this is one of the things I think is lacking in leadership is more trait building with like aerial. I know they have a little bit, but they don't have a ton of stuff for aerial. So I wish they would do more. Same with kind of like aggression. I feel like there's not a lot there for it. Well, I guess there's die bomb and whatnot. So there's some heavy events, but I wish there was like more light builds around it, like using supports or upgrades. And same, I guess, with justice and protection, they don't do a ton with it. Protection touched it a little bit with like a few cards, but it's just I wish they would do more besides just like some hard hitting aerial events, right? Like I wish there was just more than just events, I guess. And I don't mind the aerial trait, but obviously he leans very heavy into it. And so far it's been a lot of fun to play, but I could see him falling down the list because there's not a lot of different ways to play him. Now moving up to like a lot, recently I've been playing a lot of Rocket, and I've always liked Rocket, and he kind of fell to the wayside for a little while. And he's just such an interesting hero. Now, you do have to flip down with him a lot. Luckily, he has the ability himself to thwart a fair amount. You kind of get shoehorned in justice, and that might be a reason down, down in the future that he falls a bit. But he's still very, very good at in aggression. I think leadership. He's actually kind of interesting to be like a guardian leader. I think he works well with that too. So he's kind of fluctuates between there, okay, and like a lot. He's gonna be right there on the boundary. As of right now, I've been playing a lot more of him offline, and I enjoy him. Right, I enjoy for what he is and what he does. I think his whole kind of recycling mechanic is unique and interesting. Of just you don't completely get rid of his cards when you run out of uses or counters. You get to flip down and throw them away to draw cards. Like I like that mechanic. I think that's fun. I think it still works well. It's interesting enough. So far I like him a lot. I don't know how long he stays up there, but for right now he's been fun. All right, next up we have a hero where I feel like a lot of people did not like this hero at first, and that is She-Hulk. I think She-Hulk was ahead of the curve where she can thwart a lot on her alter ego side, and we just weren't prepared for this yet early on because we also didn't have the card pool to really support it, I think. But She-Hulk is a pretty interesting hero in the way that she works. She's very, very strong. She can do a lot of thwarting in alter ego, which is kind of interesting for when to flip down. It makes interesting justice decks. You can be a bit more aggressive with her if you want to be. So she works well on aggression decks. Protection actually doesn't work too poorly with her. It's actually kind of fun. I'm not a big protection player, but yeah, I've enjoyed She-Hulk for her for what she does. I think it's pretty interesting and pretty unique. I think she's fun for the most part, and I think her basic power, like her hook of she just like if she flips up and does damage, or she does allows one less thwart to be put on, like it's kind of basic and it kind of hurts her in the overall ranking. But as of right now, she's been fun. Next up, we have Thor, who I like Thor a lot. I thought Thor has always been fun. I'm happy they had a few more cards to support him. With the cards that help him because he has 14 hit points, right? With Godlike Stamina and whatnot, or Godlike Stamina and the other cards that help him. I like that they're supporting some of the older heroes with cards like that. I think Thor's fun. I think he's just a giant minion slayer, and I think that can be a lot of fun to attack all like the entire board state. I think it's really cool. I like his mechanics and how it works. I think he's just fun to play, right? I do think his weaker side is it just makes the most sense of aggression. Justice is not bad. The rest of him is not bad, but that's his weakest point is that I don't feel like there's a lot of diversity with him. I feel like I'm just going in, I'm playing a mini aggression build, but what he does is just, it's fun, right? It's really, really fun to do. So that's why I personally don't mind that, it kind of slips in some of the other categories. Just when you're out there just slaying the entire board, there's something special about that, something really cool, and he can just do it so well. The next one we have is Star-Lord, and I like Star-Lord. I think Star-Lord has more depth than I originally thought he was going to have because he works well in kind of a rush build, right? Rush Star-Lord I think is still the best Star-Lord, but leadership Star-Lord is a lot of fun as well, right? Justice Star-Lord is a lot of fun as well. So I think he's actually a pretty interesting hero in the way that he works. The risk reward thing, I don't mind with like lowering the cost. I think once you get over the idea that you have to do it all the time, I think it helps out his playstyle a bit. It's still a little rough, right? It's still not great. It can be a bad time every now and again. But overall, I think I like the way Star-Lord plays. I think it's pretty fun. I think it's pretty interesting. There's some interesting choices, I guess. And that's what makes him unique is do you want this trade-off? And like I said, it's a big risk-reward thing. I know a lot of people aren't into that, and I totally get it. But I think once you kind of get used to it and whatever, and you don't mind it, and you get used to like how to play him optimally, it's a lot better of an experience. We have a hero that at first I really didn't care for. I thought they were a bit weaker than I thought they were going to be. And I think as more personal side schemes come out, this hero gets more and more interesting, and that is Cable. I actually like Cable more than I thought I was going to. I thought he was going to be just boring and kind of straightforward. And he is to a point, right? But because the personal side schemes so far have been really interesting, that what they've come out with, I don't mind him yet. Now, if they don't do any more personal size games, maybe he starts slipping a bit. I'm not 100% sure on that. But as of now, since they're supporting the personal size games, I think it's been interesting. I think it's been cool. I like the way he works. I don't know where he ends up in the long run, but as they've come out with more, and it opens him up in what he can do with things because you can add them from any aspect. I think it's been a bit more fun. I think I've enjoyed Cable a bit more. And again, as they continue to help the psionic trait along, I think he continues to get better as well. All right, our next hero is Storm, who I like Storm a lot. I like her weather changing thing. I think she plays completely different from solo to multiplayer, which I think is really interesting because in solo, right, if I'm affecting my own board state, like who cares? Whatever, right? But if I'm affecting the entire table, it feels like a completely different game. It's really cool. I like the way her weather deck affects other cards on the table, not just your own cards. I think it's pretty cool. I actually want to play more of Storm. I think this is part of the problem. I think she would actually be higher than this. I just don't get her to the table as much as I should for some reason. I don't know what that reason is, to be honest, because every time I play her, I have a fantastic time. So I want to get her to the table more. But even with that being said, I still like her a lot. I think she's a lot of fun. I think the weather deck is a really cool idea. Hopefully they don't ever overuse it at any point, but I like the idea a lot. Now we have Spider or Spider Suit. Penny Parker, whomever it is. I like Spider a lot. When she first came out, I thought the whole idea of how you're gonna make a 3-hand size work happen, or how you can make that work with a 3-hand size, and it does work because she can get so many resource generators out there. I think it makes it kind of an interesting build. Again, it's a little bit different than the way I play. I don't like doing a ton of build out, but this is one of the few examples where I don't mind it. Right, I enjoy the build out process. I think it's actually pretty cool and pretty fun, and she handles it really well. And I think that's really neat. So I'm a fan of Spider Suit. I don't know how long she'll stay up there. It feels like, I'm doing a lot of protection, maybe some aggression with her. And again, building out isn't my favorite thing in the world to do, but it's still pretty cool with the suit, right? And be able to use them for resource generators, or you can use them for other things. I don't know. Like, it's kind of cool how she works. So hopefully she stays up there. I do want to get her to the table some more, but as of right now, like, I'm enjoying Spider Suit a fair amount. All right, my next hero up is Venom. I know this is a hero that a lot of people like, and Venom's not bad. I don't love the whole discarding pistol thing in the beginning, and then it feels like I'm just leaning hard into the pistol mechanic. He kind of fluctuates me. The reason he's up there a lot right now is because he's basically he's one half of the better version of Spider-Man, right? He's just what I want Spider-Man to be, but with guns, I guess. But his cards just feel like improved versions of Spider-Man, or at least half the cards do. So I don't know. I think a part of it's just that. Like, I just kind of pretend he's Spider-Man with guns at this point, because I really wanted Spider-Man to be better. And Venom is incredibly well balanced. Again, you're leaning very heavily into his pistols, which is fine. It's not the worst thing in the world, but at certain times I enjoy doing it. I enjoy the little build out. I enjoy kind of how his events combo off different things. I got stuck for a while playing him in Justice, but I've started messing around more with leadership and protection with Venom, and he's actually kind of cool in them because you can boost his stat line so much. So if you want to do kind of a perfect protection build, you can do that a lot easier, which is interesting. You can do your different confused builds and whatever, because he has natural confuse and stun abilities. Like, you can do all that stuff, and it's interesting enough of what you can mess around with. So he's more dynamic than I thought he would be. All right, next up we have, I guess this is the last core box hero, glancing at the rest, and that is Black Panther. Black Panther's always a good time. I think they did such a great job with Wakanda Forever, and that you're trying to not only get his upgrades out there and play the Wakanda Forevers, which is a very basic process, but also understanding like the perfect order in which to play them, right? When does it make sense to play, this one first, this one second, this one third, and how you're going to have them all interact with the board. I think they actually did a really good job with Black Panther overall. It's kind of impressive what they did with him because he's such an early on hero, but I think the depth is there. I do want them to support the Wakanda trait a lot more, though. I hope they really do. I feel like there's a lot more that they could do with him, but they haven't really done much with him, and yet he's still a really good hero. He's still a really fun hero overall. So he's slowly kind of fluctuates on the list. He's moving down a little bit. But if they ever do like a Wakanda cycle, I think there's a lot of opportunity to kind of push him back up. The next hero we have is actually a hero. All these heroes that I look at, I enjoy them quite a bit. I really do. And this is where we're starting to hit the borderline of like a lot, love them a lot. And I think I'm being not overly, I think I'm being a little more generous this year. And I can already see that the list is skewing higher for things that I like a lot. And maybe it's because we just have such a variety now that, if somebody's in the middle, like an Ant-Man, let's say, and I only have 12 heroes to pick from, and he slowly moves down because I'm just getting bored of playing him, like now I could just play him when I feel like it. And it's kind of, looking at this now, is kind of interesting to especially see it laid out like this. But anyway, one of the perfect examples of a hero like this is Captain America. I like Captain America. One of my tier listings, he fell way, 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 way down because I kept playing a perfect protection flow like water deck with him over and over, or kept playing Avengers Leadership, and it felt like there wasn't a lot else to do with him, and he just fell down. I got bored of him. I got sick and tired of him. And now he's slowly worked his way back up because, again, he works well in those decks that I've specifically mentioned, but he can also be a little more aggressive with things, right? Focusing on the strength resources for stun lock type stuff. There's different things you could do with him in not only leadership, aggression, protection, just everything. It works well for him, and he doesn't rely on like a basic set of cards. So each aspect does feel unique and different with him. The whole readying up is a little bit better, I think, than Quicksilver's, because there's it's not as simple as just readying up, right? It's that you do have to get rid of a card in order to do so. So I like the idea of Captain America. Again, I think early on I just played so much of him, he slowly drove him down. But because we have such a diverse selection of heroes now, he slowly moved his way back up. Next up, we have another hero that I like this hero a lot. Like we're right there at the end. I don't quite love her, but I like her a lot, and that is Shadowcat. I think Shadowcat's a lot of fun. I think she kind of gets a little repetitive being in, you do the perfect protection type thing because she's not going to take any damage on the one side, and then you can be a little aggressive and then flip her back between her two forms, right? Now, aggression Shadowcat can also be a lot of fun. This is what's helped move her back up, is that she doesn't have to be just a protection hero. There are really good aggression decks for her as well. If you haven't checked them out, I implore you to do so because they are really cool and really fun. But she is a hero that has definitely moved up. All right, so I think, again, like I said, we're kind of the border of like a lot, love them. I'm a little iffy where to put this one, but I think I'm going to put Spider-Woman at the end of love them. I like Spider-Woman. I like her deck building way she does things, right, with between the two aspects. I think it's cool. I don't think it's over cumbersome like Adam Warlock's is. I think now with the pool aspect, even though it's a meme aspect, I think it still kind of works well for her. I think it is kind of fun for her. So I don't really mind it too much. So I think with Spider-Woman, I think she's interesting enough. I think because her cards are aspect cards too, like it adds a little wrinkle into things and how like her stat line works. Like she was a very well-designed hero, and I think she will forever to be a well-designed hero because as long as they create aspect cards, there's more things you can do with her. So I love her a lot. She might be a little bit like a lot, like bounce between the two, but as of right now, I've really enjoyed her builds. I keep doing them, and I think she's going to stay up there at least for a little while. So the next two are kind of weird, right? They're kind of weird to talk about because here's the thing. We're going to do them a little bit together. They are the two newest heroes with X-23 and Domino. Here's the thing. I thought Domino was going to run away for being my favorite hero from the cycle and maybe compete with like top 3 heroes, right? The Mount Rushmore heroes. The problem is Domino relies so much on her basic cards of Sharpshooter and the Posse and like Digging Deep and all that stuff that like the aspect cards I picked don't really matter. Like it's just I'm running through her cards and some basic cards, and like the aspect cards like support her a little bit, and that's it. Versus X-23, where I didn't really expect anything from her, and she turned to be a lot of fun, but she also plays entirely different with each aspect. So these two heroes are so weirdly intertwined for me. I love Domino's like messing with the deck mechanic and the discard pile and like flipping up and down. Like that stuff is really cool for me, right? I really enjoy that. The problem is again, it feels like I'm running the same deck over and over and like slightly tweaking it to the left or not to the left to protection or to aggression, right? Like tweaking in like little bits and pieces. Versus X-23, it feels like I have to build a whole new hero or a whole new deck around what that hero is trying to do in protection or what they're trying to do in leadership. Like it just feels so unique compared to Domino. So as of right now, Domino is still ahead slightly. But I don't know if that stays that way. I think X-23 does continue to move up the ladder on things because again, her main deck will supplement the aspect cards, which I think is really kind of cool. All right, next up we have one of my favorite spider heroes that are out there, and that is Ghost Spider. Ghost Spider is so much fun. Even in outside of protection, right? She's a big protection hero. I think she makes a lot of sense in protection and all that fun stuff. But even outside of that, aggression works really well with her because you're looking for the hero response interrupt cards to ready her up. I think it's kind of cool. I think it's a little more complicated of a ready up system than Quicksilver's is, so I think that helps her. I think she's fun. I like the Web Warriors in general. I think they're pretty cool. So the same can be said with Ghost Spider. I like Ghost Spider. I like what she does. The problem is Justice leadership. It doesn't really work great. Not that it doesn't work great, but it's fine. But still, it's just I'm having fun. I'm having fun with her cards. I think it's pretty cool. I feel like a Web Warrior kind of jumping all around the place. So it's a really, really good time. So she stays up there. She slips every now and again because I kind of get into these ruts where I feel like I'm playing the same way with her over and over. But she's still, I mean, also she's one of my favorite comic book characters besides Peter Parker. Gwen Stacy is. So she kind of gets bonus points for that too. We have a hero that has gone up way in the ranks recently, and that's Phoenix. And that's because the help with the Psionic cards that have come out. I like Phoenix a lot. I know a lot of people dislike her because they think her Nemesis is too strong because like they'll get an auto loss or something. Her Nemesis is not that hard at all. I think it's actually pretty easy to deal with. I think also you're not supposed to like raise and lower Phoenix counters. I think you're just slowly supposed to get to the point where you go Unleash and then you go all out. And when I do that strategy, it works really well. They've been supporting Psionic more and more, which is really cool to see. Hopefully they do it a little bit more, but as of now, I've really enjoyed Phoenix. I like her whole restrained unleash thing. I think it's a cool mechanic. It's cool flipping, and like it just feels like I'm playing like two different games where like I'm just like timing when do I want to make that flip, and it's like a cool feeling because it feels like everything kind of shifts and changes, and I go from this character that's kind of just controlling the board state to this character that's truly unleashed and just decimating everything on the board. All right, this is the final hero outside of the top 10. Unfortunately, this hero keeps dropping down. I do like the hero a lot, but she just keeps dropping down, which is Ironheart. The reason being is because she's so simple in the way that she works, right? Just level up as fast as possible and get your blaster and boot thing or whatever it's called so that you can exhaust and thwart for 3 and exhaust and deal damage for 3, right? It gets around thwarting and attack from what I remember because it's just dealing damage and it's just removing threat. It's not an attack and thwart action. And then once you get to her final stage, which is what's pictured, stage 3, she just makes the game too easy. And you're just rushing to that. So it feels very samey over and over. Again, the aspects don't matter as much. I still like the process of building out because it's tough enough in the beginning that there's like, harder choices that need to be made. So I enjoy that part of it, which is still fun and still unique, but she's slowly just been kind of falling down the list, unfortunately. I think she was in the top 10 last time. I think she's now just outside of it, if I remember correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, there's 10 left, so she's number 11. So she's slowly falling outside of that top 10. I think she's going to kind of keep falling outside that top 10, unfortunately. Again, I like her. I think she's fun, but it's just she's slowly fading. All right, so we're in our top 10, which is pretty exciting. It's honestly really hard to pick between some of these heroes. I really like a lot of these heroes for different reasons. This whole love them section, like I could play any of these heroes and I would have a fantastic time. But we have to pick somebody, and this, God, it's hard. So right now, it's probably going to be Groot. I still think Justice Groot is the most fun group, but the problem is Justice Groot is the most fun Groot, right? Don't get me wrong. I love thwarting with Groot for 10. I love swinging for 10 with Groot, right? It feels good. The problem is it just kind of gets the same, right? You're doing Justice Groot over and over and over. It's a cool feeling. I don't think there's anything quite like it. Like working really hard to build up those counters and not lose them, right? And timing the flip downs and all that stuff and confuse locking or whatever else you have to do. It feels great. The problem is it's starting to feel samey, right? This is the big argument, but I still think there's enough there with how dynamic he is. Of just again, you're trying to figure out how to balance those counters without losing them. And if you lose them, like it's not like the end of the world because you didn't get hit, but now you have to like rebuild them up. And that process, like there is fun to that. There is an interesting way of handling that. So I do like that part of it. But yeah, he's another one that I think is going to keep slowly falling down unless another build starts really making sense with him. Next up, we have a hero that I like her a lot, and she kind of fluctuates because I played her so much for a while, and then I kind of stopped, and then she moved back up on the list, and that is Gamora. I really like Gamora's design. I like pulling in the extra attack or thwart cards from different aspects. I think that design choice is pretty cool with her. I think it works really well. Trying to time out when you play a thwart card to like use her special ability to deal 1 damage, and then it affects your other attack cards or vice versa, right? You do an attack card because it affects her thwarting cards. Like those in-game decisions I think are really fun and unique and cool. So I really enjoyed playing her. I think it's really, really interesting. Kind of a dynamic game. I think the pull aspect, while I'm not a fan of it, I think the cut upper card really makes her a lot stronger, like crazy kind of strong. So she's been a lot more interesting with that, unless of course you can't stun the villain, then that's not as big of a deal. But Gamora's a old favorite. I really like her. I think she fell out of favor for a little while because I was just playing her every single night over and over and over, and I got kind of bored with her. But she kind of bounced right back in because again, as long as attack and thwart cards are coming out, there's different things she can do with her deck. Our next one is a hero that I like a lot, but he's slowly slipping a little bit, I think, and that is Gambit. I like the charge counter mechanic. I like the idea of, okay, how am I going to plan to when to use my charge counters? How am I going to build them out? When am I going to use them? How I'm going to use them? Like, I think there's some interesting dynamic choices there. I think the ability to play him completely an alter ego if you want and just like stay down for a really long time. I think it's really cool. It's basically what She-Hulk does, but like a bit better with the whole thief and spy things, which I hope they keep supporting moving forward. But I like what he can do. I like that you're not shoehorned into justice because he has enough threat removal himself when he drops down. So you can be more aggressive. I actually like Gambit in aggression a lot. I think he's a lot of fun because he's so naturally good at thwarting and kind of like not being overly strong with threat removal, but being able to balance the board state pretty well. So I enjoy Gambit a lot. He's kind of moved, and I think he's always been up there. He might be slipping just a little bit, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but still enjoy him. Still think he's fun. And maybe he moves down in the future. I'm not 100% sure. I need to also get him back to the table because I think it's been a few weeks since I played him. But yeah, I enjoy him for what he is. All right, next up we have one of my absolute favorite heroes. I think she is the best threefold hero, right? The 3-card hero, and that is Wasp. I think what you can do with the genius trait with her is great. I think being able to shuffle in mental resources? I think mental resource cards. I think that's the one. Mental resource cards on the alter ego side, I think is pretty interesting with the girl power, whatever it's called. I think it's pretty cool the way she can work with, you want to focus on doing overkill damage to healing up on aggression type things. Like there's so much you can do with her. I think she's just a more dynamic and interesting version of Ant-Man, right? I don't mind Ant-Man, but I think he's very straightforward and boring versus Wasp. I feel like there's a lot more to do there. I feel like there's more nuance with the hero. And again, being a bigger form doesn't mean doing more damage, but it can kind of handle the board state versus being small and doing like pinpoint strike, right, can do massive amounts of damage, or doing the event that does overkill damage, and again using aggression to heal up on that, or using justice to kind of keep the board state in check so you can do her different things, right? There's some cool things you do there. Even with protection, she works fairly well in protection as well. So again, I think she's a little more nuanced of a hero. Again, you want to lean into her mental resources for alter ego ability if that's a route you want to do. I just think it's cool. I think she's just a really cool hero and a fun hero overall. A little harder to pilot, but I still think she's really fun to play. All right, next up we have a hero that I think most people love to hate, and that is Spider-Ham. I still think he's one of the most OP heroes in the game, and he's still fun. He's still fun. Now, Clarity of Purpose Spider-Ham is still the best Spider-Ham, I think. But I like his mechanic. I don't like his fourth wall breaking. I don't really care for that. But there is some build out you have to do. You want to balance out taking damage so you can get those tune counters up. You want to use them at opportune times, right? Get the hammer out, get the web slinger thing out, right? He doesn't even do like a ton of damage, right? He's not a massive hitter, but he does a good job of controlling the board state of thwarting, thwarting too, but of confusing or stunning or what. I think it's just confusing. I don't think it stuns, but he does a good job of handling the board state, right? I think he does a really good job of that, and it's not a very simple game all the time. But because you want to get hit, it's like this fun like little game that you play where it's like, okay, I want to heal up as well. Or if you use Clarity of Purpose with them, you could take a damage and it's going to generate all these resources for you, which is really cool. So big fan of Spider-Ham for sure. But yeah, he's it always feels like he's going to fall on the list, but he always just kind of hangs out there. He always hangs out there because it's just every time I play him, I'm having a lot of fun, right? That's really what it comes down to it. I just have a lot of fun playing him. This is number 5. This is just shy of being on the Mount Rushmore of Marvel Champions. And it's a hard one to do, but number 5 is Spider-Man Miles Morales. I like Miles Morales. I think, again, if Venom is one half of what Peter Parker should have been, Miles Morales is the other half, right? The way of you being able to confuse and stun the enemy and kind of build off of that, I think is really cool. And then obviously you're playing stalwart and steady villains. It's a lot more limiting. But because we have a large villain pool now, I just won't use him against those villains, right? Like that's just how I kind of get around that, and which is great. Again, I've mentioned this in the past. What makes this game so great is there is such a diversity selection of not only heroes, not only modular sets, not only aspect cards, but also villains as well. There's so many options of villains that you're not stuck into like, okay, well, a quarter of my villains all have stalwart, so thus Miles Morales doesn't make as much sense. That's not the case. He's a lot of fun. He's easy to play. And again, I feel like he's what Spider-Man should be. He really is. So anyway, enjoy Miles Morales. I think he stays up there for a while. It does stink with that, against stalwart and steady villains, it doesn't do as well, but it's not the end of the world. This is it. Mount Rushmore time. These are the 4 biggest heroes for me. These heroes I love to death. Every single one of these heroes. And number 4 is the GOAT, right? Everyone thinks that she's my favorite hero, and she's not my favorite. She's up there. I just respect her greatness. I respect how amazing she is. I think her kit is just fantastic. I think the way she plays is fantastic. I think in all honesty, because people want to know like if I'm memeing or not, I do enjoy her. Like I enjoy her a lot. I think she's a lot of fun. I think she has a lot of dynamic choices. I think she can do a lot of different things. Playing her in Justice is a lot of fun. Leadership might actually be her best build with the Flying Annabelle build that Brian V came out with a while ago. Might be her best build. Aggression makes a lot of sense because of minion slaying, right? Not just minion slaying, but she can overkill on the minion to do damage on the villain so you don't get hit retaliate. Or you could just line up everything to do massive amounts of damage. Where Thor always felt like he wanted to spread out his damage everywhere. She can do both, it feels like. It's quite interesting with her. And I like how now with build support, it's easier to get like a Queen Carrier in there, right? She's not great at thwarting, but it's another option to get Queen Carrier in there so she can get a resource generator. Once you get that resource generator in there for her, it's a lot stronger. It's a lot better. So anyway, I think she's just fun. Right? I have a good time playing with her. I enjoy the puzzle of figuring out how I'm going to get her to beat every villain because I do believe she can beat every villain. I think personally I've beaten every single villain with her. So there's no reason why she wouldn't be able to. I know a lot of people think that she's just super weak, and I don't see it. I don't see her being super weak. I just don't see it. I think people get stuck in this idea that she has to be this minion slayer when she doesn't. Her damage output can be crazy high. We've explained this on videos before. Her damage output can be some of the highest in the game. It's absolutely insane. Damage output for just one villain too. I mean, she can just massacre villains if she wants. Her biggest weakness is thwarting. So either you have to kind of rush a little bit faster, you have to rely on allies or something else, or you do have to get those minions out there to be able to thwart a bit. But I love her. I think she's absolutely fun. It's not a meme when I say like I think she's the GOAT. I really do think she's one of the best heroes in the game. All right, number 3 is a hero that has moved up a lot, and she just gets better with age, which is weird because she's really young. Maybe I shouldn't phrase it that way. She gets better with time. I don't know how to phrase this correctly, but Miss Marvel, I think, is one of the most underappreciated heroes of all time in this game because the timing mechanic of her wasn't something that we all understood right away, right? With that, she can recall cards and how that all works with responses and whatever. The way you learn responses really well in this game is from Miss Marvel. I mean, just the way that she works is so cool. It's so much fun. It's so much fun to play her. And it feels like I'm doing so much interesting stuff on the board. I feel like I could flip down without like having to be Justice and losing the game. I think she controls the board state well. I want to flip down because I want to get her supports in the game and start doing more. She's a ton of fun. She's a ton of fun to play. Aggression, she works really well. Justice, she works really well. Leadership, protection, she actually can work well in protection if you're a little more aggressive with your protection. It's really fun things, really cool. So big fan of Miss Marvel. I think she just stays up there. She slowly has worked her way up because again, as I've become a better player and understood timing better, I think she becomes a more interesting and dynamic hero. Number 2 is the hero closest to challenge number 1, and that is Wolverine. Well, obviously the closest. But Wolverine was the first to use his life as a resource. A lot of people play him as kind of this rush aggression hero. I still think protection Wolverine is best Wolverine. Justice Wolverine works. Aggression Wolverine works, obviously. Leadership is not awful. It's not great, but it's not awful. But the first hero to use their life as a resource, I think this was a really well done mechanic with him, right? I think that you can just pierce through enemies. You can pierce through different things. I think is really cool. You get the overkill. You get to decide if, okay, do I want to use this 3-cost card, but it's going to deal 3 damage to me, right? There's some crazy trade-offs that go there, and he doesn't have a super high life threshold. So it's how are you going to balance all this? How are you going to do it? I really enjoy Wolverine. I think the more I play him, the more I just have fun with him, right? It's my one, again, another hero that I don't know if he's OP. Probably not that. I want to go that far with it, but he's a very, very, very strong hero. And that him being that strong isn't what makes him interesting. It's the interaction. It's how am I going to balance his health, right? That's the biggest thing to me is, okay, life as a resource. I think he's done it better than X-23 and way better than Deadpool. X-23 I don't think does a bad job of it, but I think he's done it the best. And it's, okay, so how am I going to balance this? How am I going to heal him up? How am I going to like ready him up? Because I want him swinging more because he can, start swinging for 3 really quickly, really easily. Like there's just so much there with him. And track by scent for his justice card is really, or his threat reduction card is really good. There's so much cool stuff you could do with him. So I really enjoy Wolverine. I think his kit's really strong. And again, in each aspect, he feels like a very different hero in each one. And it plays really well, and it's just a lot of fun. And now finally, this brings us to the number 1, still the number 1 hero overall, and that is Scarlet Witch. The biggest thing to me is I still think to this day that Scarlet Witch manipulates the encounter deck in a way where I have to make interesting decisions, right? Do I want to get through that encounter deck faster where it's going to be ending poorly for me because he's going to get acceleration tokens, but I need to get through that deck to do different things, either play my cards, or maybe it's a bad card that comes out that I don't want to deal with, or it's a high boost card I want to deal with, right? Could be so many different things, and that manipulation, those tough choices you have to make with her, I think is what makes this game so interesting in general, right? I want to make those interesting, difficult decisions in real time. I don't want to have a hero where everything is pre-planned and I just kind of run through the motions and just win. I want to have strategy. I want to have a gameplay that is dynamic and does things on the fly, and I think Scarlet Witch is the perfect example of that. Yes, her cards are generally the cards you want to play, but Aggression Witch, really good. Turbo Witch, which most people play, really strong. Protection, it actually isn't awful with her, and she has a pretty good leadership too if you want to do that build. I really enjoy Scarlet Witch. I honestly, I do want someone to dethrone her because it's now been years that she's been my number one hero. She's still my number one hero. I still love her a lot. And I hope somebody dethrones her at some point, but to me, she is the essence of what I want in Marvel Champions. I want to make tough decisions where I have control over the board, but it's my decisions that I have to make that's going to affect the game state. Not someone like Deadpool, let's just pull for an example because he's the newest one, where, you know, the game obviously wants me to do things to lower my health and put acceleration tokens out there and just cause mass chaos. The chaos is caused by me. I am controlling the chaos, and I can choose to do this or not do this. And her kit still works, choosing not to do those things, right? It just everything about her feels really good. It feels really fun. There we go. There is all 49 heroes ranked. Hopefully that's all of them. I think that's all of them in my tier list. And again, I know some people are going to disagree with my list. They're going to say like, why did you vote? You said the same thing about this one here, but this one was up here and you said the same exact thing. I know people are going to say that. I'm just trying to run through these heroes as fast as possible so it's not a crazy long video. But again, if there are certain questions you have, come on a live stream. Come talk to me about it in a live stream. I'll be happy to address it because there are a lot of heroes, like even as I look at this tier list now, that I go, yeah, okay, these ones in the middles could flip around a little bit. They could flip flop, but generally in their tier brackets, unless you're on the very edges, like they're kind of where they're going to be, right? That's a good spot for them. So yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed this list. Again, this is just for fun. This isn't me like power ranking people. This isn't me saying like my list is the best list or anything like that. It's just my personal subjective, what I think is fun and not. And I want to know what you think is fun, right? Put it down in the comments. Write down some of your favorite heroes. If you want to list them all, go for it. But put down your favorite heroes or your not so favorite heroes, right? What do you really enjoy about the game? What do you look for in a hero, right? What makes a hero fun to you? What makes them unique and different or whatever, right? What do you look for? I'm kind of interested in that because maybe some people just care about power level and that's totally cool too. But I just want to stress that once again, this is just my opinion. This is just me having fun with the tier list. I think this stuff is really cool and kind of fun to go through each year. And if you made it this far in the video, do me a huge favor. Hit the like button, hit subscribe. That stuff really helps out the channel. It honestly does. So if you made it this far, if you have not done that yet, please do. It helps out a ton. I'll see you all next time.